Welcome to another episode of Coalflesh's Geography Corner. Only this time, it's not a corner, it's a mildly creepy room where we keep our guinea pigs. Anyway, let's get into our content. So you've already explored migration a little bit through vocabulary, so now let's talk about why people migrate. You guys will investigate the reasons why people migrate. So there are different types of migration: internal versus international. Internal migration is the type of migration in which the people migrate between states within the country, so inside the country. If you move from Kansas to Missouri, that's internal migration. International migration is when people move from one country to another country. And this little map up here shows, based on the size of the arrows, how many people move from different areas. So you can see a lot of movement from South and Central America up to the United States there. And you've got groups coming from Asia, moving to the US, Canada. You have people moving all over in different directions there. Permanent versus seasonal. So permanent migration, as the name says, is when someone moves there to stay there, to make that their new home. Whereas seasonal migration is going to be when someone moves for a limited time. Usually it is for some sort of employment. So for example, people might come up to California from Mexico, work the crops, and then go back to Mexico. That is a seasonal migration. Voluntary migration. Now, you've got voluntary versus forced. Voluntary, obviously, the idea that you volunteer, that you agree to do that. It's where the person has a choice whether they want to migrate. You're like, hey, I think I want to go to Canada. So you move to Canada. Versus forced, where something is happening to force you to move. This is maybe because of war, Ukraine, the stuff going on there, exile, persecution, famine, there's just not food. And that is more of a forced migration, trying to find some place that you can call your home that will be safe and secure for you. Now, this last little bit here, rural, urban, and suburban. Real quick, just a recap of what that is. So rural is like people that live in the countryside. Urban are people that live in the city, and suburban is the areas just outside of the city. So if you take a place like Wichita, you've got suburbs of Goddard, Mays, Andover, whereas people that live rural, they're going to live further out in small towns like Colwich or Andale or Sedgwick that are going to be more country type settings. So rural, urban, suburban movement is this idea of people moving from rural areas, so from farming communities, to urban city areas, or people moving from the major part of the city out to the edges, the suburbs. That's how suburbs are formed, or people moving out to the edges. They still want to be kind of have that city life, yet not right in the middle of it. And so that's a rural, urban, suburban movement. So real quick here, you've had a chance to look at internal versus international, permanent versus seasonal, voluntary versus forced, and rural, urban, suburban movement. Thank you.